finally worked. Okay, I have a script and I'm basically trying an experiment today. I'm going to record a YouTube video because I'm rusty on how to do it from my computer. So I'm just going to record it live here and then chop it up and edit it and re-upload it as a more professional video than what I can do right here. So you might get in on the first draft of this here. All right, let's get into it. And I have my script over here on my left. What is functional neurological disorder? Have you ever seen someone suddenly lose the ability to walk, speak, or control their body, but the scans and tests all come back normal? Sounds impossible, right? Well, that's functional neurological disorder, or FND. It's hell on earth, both for the person who has it and for their caretakers. And today we're going to break down exactly what it is, what causes it, and what can help. No jargon, no confusion, just clarity. Stick around because this is one of the most misunderstood conditions in all of neurology. Plus, I'll answer the internet's top questions like, what causes FND? Is FND real? Is FND the same as conversion disorder? And most importantly, can people get better? Quick note, today's video is sponsored by my book, FND Recovery Guide. It's the step-by-step resource I wish I had when I was first diagnosed. I'll tell you more about it later in the video, but for now, let's get into it. So what is functional neurological disorder? I'm going to give you a definition from the doctors that I disagree with, and then I'll give you my own opinion as a survivor who has done extensive research and literally wrote the book on healing FND. In the simplest terms, doctors say FND is when the brain and body stop communicating properly, like a software glitch, not a hardware problem. Think of it this way. If your brain were a computer, the wires and hard drive are intact, but the operating system crashes. The result? Symptoms that look like stroke, epilepsy, or multiple sclerosis, but the scans don't show permanent damage. Doctors sometimes call it conversion disorder or functional movement disorder. You might also hear it shortened to just FND. Different names, same idea. Though as we'll see later, the science may be shifting on what's really happening. Here's my own answer to what is functional neurological disorder. Your brain is constantly rewiring itself through a process we call neuroplasticity. FND occurs when your brain has rewired itself wrong. Often, the amygdala becomes overactive, cranking up your survival responses, so you have symptoms at the worst times in response to the tiniest stressors. And it's nearly impossible to get better unless you know how to rewire your brain using reverse neuroplasticity. But there's a catch. You can't rewire your brain in a good way when you are in survival mode, because then your brain is functioning on habit, which means every time you have symptoms, your brain is reinforcing the bad wiring. I was super bad off with FND for 2 years while doctors tried to help me, but I wasn't getting better. For over a year, I could barely stand or walk without holding on to someone or something. I lost my speech and even my ability to think amid constant seizures, tremors, and drop attacks. Fortunately, 2 years in, I started consistently implementing a strategy to rewire my brain in a good way using the science of neuroplasticity. I discovered a brain hack that actually helped me heal, and I teach this hack in my book series, FND Recovery Guide, available on Amazon all over the world. To date, I'm about 95% healed, and I'm still healing because the same method is still working for me. I can speak, think, walk, and exercise. And best of all, I'm tremor-free. Let's talk about common FND symptoms. What does this actually look like in real life? FND symptoms can vary widely, but the most common include movement problems, tremors, jerky movements, paralysis, sudden falls, or trouble walking. seizure-like episodes, sometimes called dissociative seizures or non-epileptic attacks, speech issues, sudden stuttering, whispering, or losing your voice completely, sensory problems, numbness, tingling, or even blindness that can't be explained by damage to the nerves or eyes. Here's the tricky part. Symptoms are very real, very real. This isn't faking it. People with FND can't just snap out of it. The brain is misfiring in how it sends and receives signals, and that shows up in how the body functions. Causes and misconceptions. One of the biggest misconceptions is that FND is all in your head or purely psychological. That's just not accurate. Research shows FND is a disorder of function, not structure. At least that's why it was given its name. But here's where it gets interesting. When I looked back at my own MRI scans months later, I found spots on my brain no one had even told me about. And with newer imaging like fMRI, that's functional MRI, researchers can actually see FND. So is it only functional, or could there be subtle structural changes too? The field is evolving fast. What we thought in 2020 is already being updated in 2025, and it makes me wonder, what will research uncover next? For now, we know triggers often include physical events like injuries or illnesses, psychological stress or trauma, and sometimes they just seem to appear without a clear reason. Usually it's a mix, a perfect storm that disrupts the brain-body connection. I think of it like this. Throughout your life, you are building a stress onion from the inside out. Every time you drain your body's energy reserves without filling them back up, you put another layer on the onion. And your onion just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Your body isn't differentiating between good stressors and bad stressors either. Everything counts. Physical injuries, surgeries, toxins, breakups, viruses, and everything bad counts just as much as joyful things like planning your wedding. At some point, if you have enough of these events without healing and processing them, your body just says, no, I need to rest, and it forces you to rest. But remember, the real answer is complex and always comes back to the fact that the brain constantly rewires itself. It's up to us to do the maintenance. Doctors try their best to support, but the unfortunate truth is no pill is going to fix this for you. You have to heal your brain with neuroplasticity, and that's something no one else can do for you. Again, if you want to 7-step, okay, that's a blooper right there. I'm gonna have to cut that out. I've done pretty good reading the script up until now. All right, back to the script. Again, if you want a 7-step method backed by all the research studies you could ever want, you can get a copy of the book I wrote called FND Recovery Guide over on Amazon. Volume 1 is out now, and Volume 2 drops at the end of October 2025. So, if brain scans are finally catching up and giving us new clues, the question is, how do doctors actually diagnose FND today? For a long time, diagnosis was what doctors call a diagnosis of exclusion. That means they would rule out other conditions like stroke, epilepsy, or multiple sclerosis. And if nothing else fit, the patient was told, well, maybe it's FND. Understandably, that didn't feel great. It left many people thinking their symptoms weren't real, or the doctors just didn't know what to do with them. But here's the encouraging part. In recent years, specialists have shifted toward positive diagnosis. That means looking for signs that are unique to FND rather than just relying on what isn't there. Some examples: a tremor that changes when the patient is distracted, weakness that vanishes when tested in a different way, seizure-like episodes without the electrical brain activity that true epilepsy shows. These clinical signs help neurologists say, yes, this is FND, not just we ruled everything else out. And with advanced imaging like fMRI, researchers can now even see unusual patterns of brain activation in FND patients. That's still mostly in research settings, but it shows how diagnosis is evolving. So today, FND is diagnosed with a combination of careful history, positive clinical signs, and sometimes cutting edge imaging that's giving us new windows into how the brain works. Treatment and management. The main FND treatments usually include cognitive behavioral therapy, supportive medication, specialized physical therapy, occupational and speech therapy, psychological support, education, and self management. And that's where this book comes in. Think of it as debugging a computer. With the right steps to reset, the brain can rewire itself again. And this is exactly why I wrote the F&D Recovery Guide. It's my step-by-step framework for healing based on both scientific research and my own recovery journey. If you want to go deeper than what we can cover here, check out the link in the description. Here's the big takeaway. FND is real. It's not rare. And it's not hopeless. And as imaging technology like fMRI improves, we may discover even clearer answers. The story of FND is still being written, and you're part of it. With the right support, many people improve, some even fully recover. It may take time, patience, and the right strategies, but the brain is adaptable. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire, is on your side. Thanks for watching. If this helped clear things up, hit the like button so more people searching for answers about FND can find it. Make sure you subscribe for more clear research-backed videos on neurological health and recovery. And if you've got questions maybe about functional movement disorder, dissociative seizures, or new research like fMRI, drop them in the comments. I read them all, and your question just might show up in a future video. And don't forget to check out my sponsor, my book, F&D Recovery Guide. It dives deeper into the 7 steps that helped me recover, and that might help you too. And it does talk about neuroplasticity and the hack you can use to get your brain to allow you to rewire it. And the link is going to be right below in the final video once I put this into my editor and chop it up and re-upload it here. Until next time, remember your brain is not broken. It just needs the right reset.